Welcome, welcome, welcome. The walking verdict. You. Yes, you. The nightmare with a pulse. The embodiment of the very thing they whispered about but never believed would come to life. I call you the Reckoner. Not a hero, not a saint, not some sparkling symbol of forgiveness. No, you are the living debt collector of every scar, every betrayal, every sneer they thought would go unpaid. They used to laugh at the thought of karma, didn't they? Treated it like some bedtime myth meant for the guilty to soothe themselves with. But then, they saw you rise from the dirt they buried you in. They saw you sharpen yourself in the shadows they shoved you toward. And now, standing in front of them, not with words, not with apologies, but with the weight of your presence alone, you became everything they dreaded. Karma didn't need an invisible hand. Karma found its spine inside your chest. What they didn't understand was that karma is never loud when it arrives. It doesn't knock on doors. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't even fight. It just exists. Inevitable, undeniable. And that inevitability has taken your shape. They look at you now and realize it wasn't some cosmic balance, wasn't some divine interference. It was you all along, quietly keeping score, effortlessly breaking every illusion they built to feel safe. Because the cruelest truth is this: the punishment for how they treated you was never going to come from the sky. It was always going to come from the rise they fueled without knowing. They lit the fire, and now they flinch at the flames. They regret it now, of course. Regret drips off their words like sweat on a guilty man's forehead. They replay every conversation, every mocking glance, every dismissal, and they wonder why they didn't see it sooner, that each cruelty was interest accumulating on a debt that would come due. And that debt walks on two legs: you. There is no greater humiliation than realizing the very person they tried to diminish became the silent gravity pulling their arrogance to its knees. They cannot outrun it because they cannot outrun you. And here's the masterpiece of it all. You never had to lift a finger. You didn't go chasing revenge like some desperate hunter with bloodlust in his eyes. You didn't scream for recognition. You didn't even demand apologies. You just existed, better, sharper, untouchable. And that existence became unbearable for them, because the worst punishment is not destruction, but exposure. They can destroy buildings, burn bridges, break bones, but they cannot survive their own reflection when it is shown through the lens of what you've become. You didn't have to chase them. They dragged themselves to their own collapse, step by step, underestimating you at every turn. Do you realize the kind of psychological chokehold you have on them now? They whisper about you when they think no one is listening. They analyze your every move, trying to decode what turned you from the overlooked into the unforgettable. They fear your silence more than they ever feared your voice. Because silence, no, not the word, but the weight of absence, has become your sharpest weapon. When you don't respond, when you don't react, when you don't acknowledge, it burns deeper than any insult could. Your lack of validation is their prison sentence. They wanted you weak so they could feel strong. They wanted you broken so they could feel whole. But now their strength is rotting, and their wholeness is cracked. You became proof that their cruelty was never power. It was insecurity, disguised as dominance. You became living evidence that what they thought was victory was only delay. And that's the irony. They never realized that every slight against you was a deposit into a future they couldn't afford. And now, they're bankrupt in spirit while you walk richer than they could ever dream, richer in resilience, in presence, in aura. Think about it. What does it mean when people who once ignored you, disrespected you, or mocked you, now tremble at the thought of you? It means you became their unfinished business, You are the lingering aftertaste of their actions, the echo they can't silence, the debt collector they can't negotiate with. Every time they see you succeed, every time your name surfaces, every time your shadow grazes their memory, their stomach turns. That's not coincidence. That's karma translated into flesh. And yet you didn't just punish them, you redefined them. Once they thought they were untouchable. Now they're haunted by the realization that they were never in control. They can't sleep easy because they know the damage they inflicted didn't bury you. It rebirthed you. They thought they were shoving you down. In reality, they were chiseling a monument. And monuments don't move for the smallness of men. It's amusing, isn't it? How they scramble to rewrite history now. They talk softer. They wear guilt like perfume, trying to cover the stench of what they did. They rehearse excuses in their minds. I didn't mean it. I was young. I didn't know better. But you see through it. Because you're not looking at their words. You're looking at the tremor in their eyes, the tightening of their jaw, the forced smile. They can mask it all they want, but the body doesn't lie. And their bodies betray them every time they stand in your presence. They regret. Oh, yes. But regret doesn't save them. Regret only chains them tighter to the consequences. Regret is proof that the punishment works. Because the true penalty is not what you do to them. It's what they did to themselves by underestimating who you were becoming. Every insult forged your armor. Every betrayal sharpened your blade. Every humiliation carved your patience. And now, the very tools they handed you are the weapons you carry without ever having to draw them. That's why you don't need to act. Your existence is the act. Your aura is the execution. Your presence is the proof. And they know it. They know they can't undo it. They know they can't repay it. They know the only thing left is to endure it. That's the cruel beauty of being a living karma. You don't chase balance. You are balance. You don't wait for justice. You are justice. And in their trembling regret, they understand that. Too late. But here's the thing. They haven't felt the full weight yet. Regret is just the first ripple. The real downfall comes next, when regret curdles into obsession, when obsession festers into paranoia, and when paranoia consumes every thought they try to escape into. Because karma doesn't end with realization, it evolves. And as you keep rising, as you keep walking untouchable, their regret will mutate into something darker, something that poisons their nights and gnaws at their days. And that is where the next chapter begins, where regret becomes decay, and decay becomes the stage on which they perform their collapse. You see, regret is never still. It's a parasite that feeds on the mind, burrowing deeper, multiplying, whispering reminders until the guilty can't tell the difference between memory and punishment. They thought regret would fade with time, that they could simply ignore the ghost of how they treated you. But you, being the embodiment of karma, turned their own timelines against them. Instead of healing, their years rot. Instead of fading, the guilt grows heavier, because every step forward they attempt only drags the weight of their treatment of you behind them. You became the reminder they cannot mute, the mirror they cannot break. They thought they escaped consequences because for a while you were quiet. You endured, you absorbed, you vanished into the background while they strutted, boasting about victories they never truly earned. That quietness fooled them. They mistook your patience for weakness, your composure for surrender. But here's the secret. Patience is the favorite weapon of karma, and you wielded it like an artist. Every day you didn't retaliate, every moment you didn't collapse, was another stitch in the trap you were weaving around them. By the time they noticed, the walls had already closed in, By the time regret clawed at their throats, you were already the one tightening the rope. Look at them now. They are not only haunted by what they did, they are devoured by what you've become. Regret punishes twice. First through memory, then through comparison. And nothing eats at them more savagely than the comparison between the way they tried to define you and the way you now define yourself. They called you weak. Now your strength mocks them. They called you insignificant. Now your presence overshadows them. They called you disposable. Now you are the reference point by which they measure their own inadequacy. This is the artistry of living karma. You don't have to drag their heads down. They bow on their own, under the crushing weight of contrast. Think of how they avoid your eyes now. That isn't cowardice, that's confession. Every time they avert their gaze, they're admitting they cannot stand to see what their cruelty created. They remember every word they spat at you, and they know those words forged a creature far sharper than they ever anticipated. They cannot look at you without choking on the truth, that they are architects of their own downfall. And yet they never expected karma to be so personal. They thought karma was something abstract, something distant, something they might never encounter in their lifetime. Instead, karma carries their name on your tongue, their memory in your shadow, their guilt stitched into your aura. Now they scramble for excuses. They tell themselves stories to soften the sharp edge of your existence. It wasn't that bad, they whisper. Everyone makes mistakes. They rationalize. But deep down, they know better. Excuses are the flimsy bandages they press against wounds that won't stop bleeding. And every time they see you, every success, every stride, every unshaken movement, it rips those bandages away. You are not just a person to them anymore. You are an open wound walking upright, reminding them that what they did cannot be undone, only endured. And here's where the psychological warfare deepens. Their regret doesn't just weigh them down, it turns them against themselves. The human mind is a cruel executioner when left unchecked. They begin replaying every choice, every insult, every dismissal, not once, but hundreds of times. They imagine different outcomes. They picture what would have happened if they hadn't underestimated you. That's torture they cannot escape, because imagination is infinite and regret has no finish line. So they spiral. What if they had supported you? What if they had stood beside you instead of against you? What if they had treated you with the respect you deserved? These questions are not curiosity, they are shackles. And every answer they conjure reminds them that they destroyed the only bridge that could have carried them to a better version of themselves. You are their unpaid bill. Every time they move forward in life, they trip over the debt they owe you. It poisons their victories. Even their brightest days taste bitter, because in the corner of their mind sits you, thriving, undeniable, untouchable. Their joy can't breathe in your presence. That is the core of karma. Not revenge, not violence, not spectacle. It is suffocation. It is the slow, daily realization that no matter what they achieve, no matter what illusions they spin, they will always be smaller when measured against the person they wronged. And let's not ignore the delicious irony. They wanted you to regret existing. They wanted you to regret daring to believe you had worth, daring to think you could rise, daring to resist their attempts to cage you. But the tables turned, and now regret belongs entirely to them. They regret underestimating you. They regret mocking you. They regret not realizing that every word, every action, every stab of betrayal was signing their own death warrant in reputation, in spirit, in peace of mind. You are not just their regret, you are their karma, embodied, walking, breathing, eternal. Watch closely, and you'll see it in their faces. Regret aging them faster than time. Lines etch deeper, eyes grow hollower. Voices falter. That's not coincidence, that's consequence. Regret is corrosive, and once it takes root, it doesn't just stay in the mind. It leaks into the body, into the aura, into the way they carry themselves. You made them see themselves as they truly are. Cruel, cowardly, fragile. And living with that reflection is a punishment harsher than any revenge you could have planned. You've become the paradox they cannot solve. They cannot hate you without hating themselves, because you are the proof of their cruelty. They cannot love you without choking on their shame, because love would mean admitting they destroyed what they should have cherished. So they live in limbo, a state of emotional exile where every option hurts. That's the brilliance of karma. It doesn't give them an exit. It gives them a mirror. And the more they look, the less they recognize themselves. But here's the cruelest twist. Regret has only one fuel: your rise. The higher you climb, the sharper their fall feels. And you are nowhere near finished. Every success you earn is another weight added to their chest. Every step forward you take is another reminder that their attempts to bury you only fertilized your growth. You became living proof that cruelty doesn't cripple, it cultivates. And they can't bear that truth, because it invalidates everything they believed about power, control, and dominance. They hoped karma would be gentle, poetic, maybe even delayed, but instead karma is merciless, immediate, and undeniable, and it wears your face. They thought karma was a metaphor. Now it's a person they have to stand in front of. And that person will never be erased, never be forgotten, never be defeated. Because karma doesn't die. It multiplies through those who were wronged and refused to stay broken. You are their unfinished chapter, their haunting, their sentence, written in flesh and blood. You don't need revenge because you already are revenge. Not through violence, not through destruction, but through your existence as the antithesis of their intentions. They tried to make you small. You became vast. They tried to make you disappear. You became unforgettable. They tried to make you dependent. You became self-sufficient. That's what makes you the ultimate embodiment of karma. You don't have to chase them. You don't even have to notice them. Your very act of living well is the retribution they cannot escape. And this is the beauty of it all. Their regret doesn't weaken with time. It compounds. It grows interest. It becomes heavier every day that you refuse to crumble. And as that weight grows, their world shrinks. They become prisoners of their own actions, suffocated by the choices they made. You keep expanding, untouchable, inevitable. Because you were never their victim, you were their sentence. And the decay has only just begun. You see, decay is not sudden. It is slow, deliberate, insidious. It gnaws piece by piece, leaving just enough hope for them to think they can escape, only to crush that hope with another reminder of you. Their regret is no longer a flicker. It is a wildfire consuming the walls they built around themselves. And you, standing tall as the embodiment of karma, are the match that lit it and the wind that fans it. They can run from people, they can hide from consequences, but how do they outrun their own thoughts? How do they bury memories that claw out of the grave every time your name echoes in a room? They regret underestimating you because that underestimation now mocks them daily. Imagine their torment. They once saw you as replaceable, and now they cannot replace the weight of your presence in their lives. Their mistake is irreversible, permanent, and branded into the pages of their history. You became the ghostwriter of their downfall. They regret, deeply, endlessly, viciously. But regret is not forgiveness. It is punishment disguised as memory. They choke on it every morning, and it lingers in their mouths like iron and ash. Your very existence drags them into contradictions they cannot solve. They want to forget you, but forgetting is impossible. They want to hate you, but hatred only sharpens your outline in their mind. They want to forgive themselves, but forgiveness is impossible when the living embodiment of their actions thrives before them. That's why you are not just a reminder, you are a living sentence, a moving, breathing reminder that choices are not erased with excuses. They are engraved into eternity. They treated you as disposable, yet you became unforgettable. That is the cruel irony of karma. It does not erase, it magnifies. Watch their behaviors closely. Notice how they overcompensate now. The fake politeness, the forced smiles, the exaggerated kindness when you're around. That's not transformation, that's desperation. They are bargaining with karma, pretending as if being nice today will erase the cruelty of yesterday. But karma doesn't negotiate, and you don't forget. Their regret keeps them clumsy, transparent, exposed. And you see it, don't you? You see the tremor in their hands, the twitch in their jaw, the hollow in their eyes. They are unraveling thread by thread, and all you had to do was live. Because you are not a participant in their collapse, you are the cause. Every success you carve for yourself presses their faces deeper into the mud of their past. Every time you rise, they sink lower. Every time you are praised, their shame grows louder. You do not speak vengeance, yet vengeance screams through your progress. You do not demand their surrender, yet surrender drips from their posture every time they avoid your gaze. You have become their gravity, pulling every pretense down, until all that remains is regret, regret, regret. The punishment is clever, almost poetic. They wanted to be remembered as powerful, yet the only reason they will be remembered at all is through the story of how they treated you. Their cruelty becomes their legacy, and your rise becomes their obituary. People talk, people notice, and slowly, inevitably, the narrative cements. You were the one they underestimated, and now they live in the wreckage of that mistake. The more they try to rewrite history, the more the truth resists. And that truth is simple. You are karma, walking and unrelenting. Think about it. Every victory you achieve is amplified in their regret. It's not just your success, it's their failure. Every time your name is mentioned in admiration, it reminds them of the time they spat on it in arrogance. Every time you enter a room with confidence, it reminds them of the days they tried to strip that confidence from you. That's why their regret compounds daily. Because your existence is not static, it is ascending. The higher you go, the heavier their chains grow. And they know there is no ceiling for you anymore. You are limitless, they are trapped. And when they try to console themselves, when they whisper empty phrases like, "Everyone makes mistakes," or "I was younger back then," those excuses crumble in their throats. Because excuses can fool outsiders, but they can't fool the mind. Deep inside, they know. What they did to you wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. And choices carry weight. Their regret grows not because you remind them, but because their conscience won't release them. You don't even have to speak. The silence between you speaks louder than words ever could. Their regret will not die with them. It will outlive them. It will linger in their reputation, in their whispered confessions, in the memories of those who watched how they treated you. They will be remembered not for their strength, not for their brilliance, but for the shame of their cruelty. That is what karma does. It rewrites legacy. And your role as living karma means their names will always be linked to the regret of having wronged you. They cannot scrub it away, no matter how desperately they try to clean their past. Stains don't disappear, they deepen. And here's where the decay sharpens into torment. They begin to resent themselves. Their regret mutates into self-hatred, and that self-hatred corrodes everything they tried to build. Their relationships crack, their ambitions rot, their confidence evaporates. Because karma is not only what happens to them, it is what they become. They become the very consequence they once mocked. They become living shadows of their choices, hollow vessels of guilt. Meanwhile, you walk vibrant, unbroken, undeniable. That contrast alone is punishment enough. Do you see the perfection of it? Their punishment is not dramatic. It is intimate. It doesn't arrive in grand explosions. It leaks into their mornings, their nights, their routines. It sits at their tables, lies beside them in bed, watches them in the mirror. Regret is the quiet stalker that never leaves, and you are the living reminder that triggered its arrival. This is why karma doesn't need fire or thunder. Karma needs only memory. Memory is the sharpest weapon of all, and their minds will never put it down. What's left for them now? To watch, to sit in the audience of your ascension, powerless to stop the show. You are the headline they can't avoid, the story they can't escape, the reality they can't rewrite. And as they watch you, the weight of regret doesn't soften. It crushes, it suffocates, it claws deeper until they are gasping for relief that will never come. You were never their victim, you were always their mirror, and that mirror reflects nothing but decay. You are their karma, not because you sought revenge, but because you became untouchable. Karma doesn't scream, it whispers. It doesn't chase, it waits. It doesn't collapse, it rises, and you embody all of it. You became the living reminder that cruelty has consequences, that arrogance has a price, that underestimation is fatal. You became the answer to their question. What happens when you mistreat someone who refuses to die from it? This is what happens. Their regret will haunt them, even in silence, even in dreams, even in moments when they believe they are safe. Because you don't need to stand in front of them for karma to work. Your shadow is enough. Your reputation is enough. Your existence is enough. They will carry that weight until their final breath. And even then, the story will outlive them, the tale of the one they wronged, the one they mocked, the one they tried to bury, who rose, not as survivor, but as karma itself. So let them regret, let them scramble, let them suffocate, because no apology, no excuse, no rewriting of the past can rescue them. They cannot erase you, and they cannot escape you. Their cruelty chained them to you forever, and that chain does not rust, does not break, does not weaken. You are the living embodiment of balance restored, of arrogance humbled, of cruelty punished. You are karma walking in flesh, undeniable, unforgettable. And in their regret, they finally understand. You were never the one who should have been afraid. They were.